looking at now is the plans for Reconstruction. But I need to go back and reflect. Can y'all tell me who won the Civil War battle-wise? The Union, right? They get the South to surrender. How were the terms that Grant gave Lee at Appomattox Courthouse about that they get to keep their horses, they get to keep their firearms, they get to get a day's rations? How was that? Was that nice or was that mean? Nice. And you have to understand that Lincoln is kind of telling Grant, we have a war to still continue, right? We have other states that have not surrendered. And so also, Lincoln is looking at Reconstruction. And Reconstruction is that reconciliation. And can you have reconciliation with another person if you are being mean and vicious with them? No. And so Lincoln is going to come into Reconstruction. And there's a reason why y'all realize that there's 4 plans here, right? There's Lincoln's, there's Johnson's, there's Congress's Plan 1, Congress's Plan 2. There's a reason why there's 4 of them. And we're going to get to a lot of problems that's going to happen in Reconstruction. But how many of you have heard the phrase before, the South will rise again? Have y'all ever heard that before? It's usually with the Confederate flag, right?
No.
So have y'all seen that before with the Confederate flag and this says the South will rise again?
No, I just seen it.
You've heard the phrase, but you haven't seen it with the flag. Usually there's a lot of bumper stickers I see. But
Gotta love Texas.
I gotta love Texas, right? But we'll talk more about Texas as we get through this. But I want us to reflect on that phrase, the South will rise again. Because we know the North won the Civil War. But as we go through Reconstruction, we are going to see that the South will rise again. So we're going to go through Lincoln's plan. And I want you, Lincoln wants them to reconcile. We have to focus on the economy. So should we have a long, drawn-out Reconstruction or should we have a short Reconstruction? So is he going to be nice with his rules or is he going to be harsh? He should, right? If they are going to learn a lesson, make it harsh, right? So when y'all have learned lessons, did y'all learn when your parents were easy on you or harsh on you? Harsh. But Lincoln, he's going to be lenient. So I want y'all see how Lincoln starts with an L, right? Mm-hmm. I want y'all to write underneath it, lenient. Do y'all know what lenient means?
Yeah.
What does lenient mean? Lenient.
Like you kind of let things like slide.
Slide. Are you going to be harsh or are you going to be easy?
Easy.
Okay, so there's that alliteration for us. Lenient Lincoln. And Lincoln, he's going to be lenient. Again, was he lenient with those surrender terms that Grant gave? He's going to be lenient because he wants the Union to get back together. He wants rapid readmission. And so his whole logic of why he should be able to control Reconstruction is this idea that he sees the South as criminals. And he's going to say he should control Reconstruction because the president has the right to pardon criminals. So this is why Lincoln and Johnson will be the first 2 to develop the plans for Reconstruction. They believe in this presidential pardon. So what we're going to look at is all the provisions of Lincoln's plan. A lot of you were missing this in 8. So the first part of his plan is a 10% oath of allegiance. Is that easy? Getting 10% of a state to agree that they're united to the U.S. again. Yeah, because that means how many other people in that state are kind of rejecting it. Okay, so this is a simple and easy bar. This is going to allow for rapid readmission. The next thing that they have to agree to is the 13th Amendment. This 13th Amendment, we know, finally does what? Abolishes slavery, which Lincoln tried to do during the war with what item? Do y'all remember what? Emancipation Proclamation, and y'all told me that in 1865 they were finally free. Really, they were not free until the 13th Amendment was created. Okay, I want,
Wasn't it only South Carolina?
And it was only in the southern states still rebelling. Now he's doing it everywhere. So the last thing, once they agree to these 2 things, wait, why do you think he only did 10% with that 13th Amendment?
Because it would be harder to get.
It'd be harder to get if it was any higher. Is he changing their economy? He says once these two things get agreed to, then they can form new state governments. Tennessee, Arkansas, and Louisiana are going to agree to this.
Is that 10%?
Yeah, they get 10% of their population to agree to this. And so they'll come in. Again, he's being lenient. But there was a question on your study guide. With the 13th Amendment, what compromise is now abolished? 3/5. So African Americans now no longer count as 3/5. So what do they count as?
A whole person.
A whole person, 5/5, right? So then if we increase the proportion of what an African American is, does that have an impact in the House?
Yes.
So then all of a sudden, the South, who has lost the Civil War, is going to come back into the Union with what? More power. They're going to get a total of 12 new seats. Wait,
Wow.
they lost the Civil War, but now they're coming back what? Stronger, right? With more seats. Who controls Congress at this moment? Republicans, right? Radicals will soon get a control of it. Do they like with these new state governments coming in? No, because when they were gone, they were able to pass the Morrill Tariff Act, the Homestead Act, the Railroad Act. Now that these people are coming back, what do you think is going to happen? What do those Republicans fear? They're going to take those away. So here is the problem. The Republicans who are sitting in Congress are going to pass the Wade-Davis bill. And you saw this on number 9, that the Wade-Davis bill is going to raise that 10% oath to 50%. Okay, does it make it harder? So if it makes it harder for the South to agree to Reconstruction, what is that delay? Reconstruction and them coming into Congress and them getting what? Power. So do y'all see that the Wade-Davis bill is a ploy by the Republicans to delay Reconstruction and stop who from coming to get their new seats? The South. Because the South is going to be now what? Stronger. Do you think Lincoln is going to like this? Is this lenient like Lincoln wants to be?
No.
Will this allow for rapid readmission? So what do you think Lincoln's going to do with this bill? Veto it. He vetoed it.
I was going to say impeach it.
Okay? He actually vetoed it, and it's called a pocket veto, which you'll learn about in government next year, where Congress was already out of session. He didn't have to sign it and send it back. He just didn't send it. So now, whose logic are we still following? Lincoln, but there's a problem, because you already know this. Lincoln is shot, right? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to bring up bad memories for y'all. But Lincoln is shot, so now who does this put in control of Reconstruction? Someone else, and his name is Johnson. And y'all had on your study guide, Johnson. How is Johnson a misfit? Johnson is a misfit because is he even a Republican? No. What party was he from? He was a war Democrat that united with Lincoln in the Republican to form the Union Party. Was he even a Northerner? No, his home state was Tennessee. Tennessee left the Union and joined the Confederacy. So he's a Democrat with a congressional group that is what? Republican. Do you think they're going to like Johnson?
No.
No. But Johnson's going to come in, and Johnson, which on a lot of y'all study guides on number 12, I put whose logic did Andrew Johnson follow? Lincoln's. So what do you think is going to be the first building block? He's going to say, I should control this because they are treasonous people. I get to pardon them. So what's the first building block? 10% oath. Is he being lenient? The next thing he's going to do is the 13th Amendment. All right? One thing I forgot to mention in the Wade-Davis bill, a lot of y'all just wrote 50% oath. But another thing that the Wade-Davis bill is going to do is going to repudiate Confederate debt. I don't know if y'all know what repudiate means. Repudiate means that they refuse to pay. So right now, have your parents repudiated you yet? That they said that they won't pay for anything of yours? No, a lot of they pay for the house, they pay for your car, some other stuff for you, right? Have they fully repudiated you yet? When you go to college, are they going to repudiate you? Slowly. By the time you graduate and get your diploma and you're married, are they going to repudiate you?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Okay. Okay. So y'all get what repudiate is, right? So they're bringing it from the Wade Davis bill. Why do you think he brings this? Who do you think he's trying to make happy by bringing this from the Wade Davis bill, saying, I'm going to require that they pay their own debt on their own? Who is he trying to make happy? The Republicans, because do they like him? No. Is he getting a little bit harsher? Yes, but is he way harsh? No. He's going to warn all southern states because he's a southerner. He's like, look, if you don't agree to my plan that is very lenient and I'm telling you to pay your own stuff, he's like, there is a tougher group of people who want to get a hold of Reconstruction called the radicals. And if you don't do this, is this going to get worse?
Yes.
So every state will agree to this but Texas. And you have to understand Texas is just being Texas, but it takes time for Texas to actually get news. Like when the freedom of the slaves actually happened, it took till Juneteenth. It just took time for news to travel. So again, it's just taking time for Texas to get on the bandwagon. Okay, they all do it, right? But there's problems. Y'all had a reading on this. The black codes. Okay, were African Americans really free according to the black codes? No, they couldn't serve in a jury, right? They couldn't buy or rent land. They could not vote. They were punished if they were vagrant. Did y'all catch that in the reading? Do y'all know what vagrancy is? Many of you probably see people who are vagrant in our halls. They ask their teacher, I need to go to the restroom. But do they go to the restroom?
No.
What do? They're walking the halls. That's vagrancy. Next time you see that, you say, hey, you're being vagrant. And you walk off with your big word and they'll just be stupefied. Okay? But do the black codes allow African Americans to be truly free? No. What does it reestablish again? Slavery. What is this a violation of in this plan over here? The 13th Amendment. So, do you now understand why we have to have another plan? Because is the South respecting Reconstruction? No. Okay? The next thing that they do is they re-elect ex-Confederate leaders. Wait, have these guys gone through therapy that nullification and secession are wrong? Have they gone through therapy or anything like that? No. So what type of ideas do you think they're going to carry out again? Okay, so is there any remorse? Do y'all know what remorse is? It's extreme sadness and sorriness, right? That they are wallowing because of what they've done wrong. Was there any wallowing? So we basically fought a war and they're like, okay, we're going to come back together, but have they learned a lesson? No, because is the South rising again? Is the South going back to exactly what it was before the Civil War? So who is this group that is really upset about all of this stuff that is going on? The Republicans in Congress. And they're going to say, okay, yes, they're criminals, but these states, when they left the Union, they formed a new nation, right? And they're trying to come back into our nation. So what law gives Congress the authority to bring in new states? There's a law from a long time ago. Not the Elastic Clause, it's Alexander Hamilton. It's a ordinance, do you remember it? Northwest Ordinance. They're going to say, because these states left the Union, they committed suicide.
What?
State suicide, right? They left the Union, they say we're going to form a new nation, right? South Carolina, is it South Carolina no more? Okay, so they committed suicide. They're no longer a state. They're trying to come back in. And by the Northwest Ordinance, Congress should control Reconstruction. Are Congress and Johnson seeing eye to eye? No. So what we're going to look at is Congress is going to come back to these problems right here. What aren't they respecting? They're not respecting what?
The 13th Amendment.
13th Amendment. So they need to do something to make sure that that 13th Amendment is being respected. They're going to use the same building block. So what do you think the first building block is?
10%.
10% oath.
13th Amendment.
13th Amendment. And we're going to add the 14th.
Oh.
On your study guide, most of us know that the 14th Amendment guarantees citizenship, right? To anybody born in the United States. But there's other things that go on with the 14th Amendment. I don't know how many of y'all wrote it down for number 21, but I want us to look at all 4 facets. It's actually 5 facets of the 14th Amendment. The first one is citizens. Most of us, we're all born in the United States, we're all citizens. So are we guaranteed rights? Yes. Are these African Americans who are here, were they born in the United States?
Yeah.
So are they guaranteed rights? What rights are being violated? Go back to here. What's being violated of their rights? What issue here is violating their rights of being equal citizens? The black codes. The second part of this, it says when a state denies a citizen the vote, its representation will be reduced. So if a state denies you the vote, their representation will be reduced in Congress. Wait, who had this fear that the South was going to come back and they were going to have more congressional seats because now the 3/5 compromise was gone? The Republicans. The Republicans put that in the 14th Amendment so they could do what to the South's power? Diminish it, because were they allowing in the black codes African Americans the right to vote? So if they denied the vote to the African Americans, what happened to their power in Congress? Okay. The next one, it repudiates all Confederate debt. Haven't we seen that before? Whose plan was that in? Johnson's, and it was in the Wade Davis bill. Also, ex-Confederate leaders cannot hold office. Does that go back to one of our problems? It says anybody in the act of rebellion cannot hold an office. So can these people come back in their terrible ways of nullification and states' rights and secession? The last thing they said, if these rights are infringed on, if the state does not create equality amongst its citizens, if the state denies the vote, if they re-elect these ex-Confederate leaders, Congress could come in and enforce this. So for the next 100 years, who was supposed to protect African Americans? Congress. But do you think they did? And we got to uncover what happens in these next 2 plans of why Congress does not come in. So great. What amendment do you think the South is going to dislike? Is it going to be the 13th or the 14th? Let's look at the social structure of the South first. Do y'all remember who was at the top?
Plantation.
The planter oligarchy, right? And then we had the government officials, right? And then we had this guy that was called the yeoman farmer. Who do we have next?
Indentured servants.
Landless.
The landless ones.
And who do we have below that?
The indentured servants.
Slaves. But now we're going to put former. Okay, who's going to be upset according to this? Who's going to be upset with the 13th Amendment? What group up here would be upset with it? The planter oligarchy. Because what do we know about slaves? Their resources, they're also very valuable. Remember, about 1800 at this time, equivalent to a car today. The 13th Amendment didn't kind of ruin this social order. So that's why the black codes were instilled, right? To reinforce this. Now the 14th Amendment, I want you to look at this pyramid and I want you to tell me what line will be erased because of the 14th Amendment. What line right here is going to be erased when we say that they're equal citizens, they should have the right to vote? Which one? This line thus goes away. Is that going to upset a group of people? Why is this, with that 14th Amendment, this line is now erased? Why does it upset that group of people?
So it says they're equal.
They're equal, and now they're both competing for jobs, right? And when there's competition for jobs, what happens to wages?
It goes down.
It goes down. So which amendment do you think right here is going to be more protested? The 13th or the 14th? The 14th, because it erased this line right here. And do they want this line to at least say that they're a little bit above someone else? So we're going to see that they refuse to ratify the 14th Amendment. Because also, does it take away power from the South? So another problem is that the radical Republicans get 2/3 control of Congress. Do the radicals like how easy this Reconstruction stuff has been? No. And so they're going to come out with a tougher plan. And this plan will be military reconstruction. Why do you think they're sending the military in? Who do you think they're sending in the military to protect on this social pyramid right here? The former slaves, the African Americans, right? So we're going to get military reconstruction. Of the 14th Amendment, I talked about 5 parts, right? Them being equal citizens, ex-Confederate leaders not being reelected. If a state denies the person the right to vote, their representation will be reduced. Repudiate the debt, and Congress is going to enforce. Which part of the 14th Amendment do you think the South is going to resist? Is it making them equal citizens, giving them the vote, the ex-Confederate leaders, repudiate the debt, or letting Congress in? What do you think is going to be the most contested?
Letting them be equal.
Letting them be equal and letting them what? Vote. And so this is why in Congressional Plan number 2, we have the 10% oath, the 13th, 14th, and now they had to be explicit in the 15th Amendment and give them the right to what? Vote. What has now happened to this line again? It's being erased. Is this group getting upset? Yes. They're upset because economically wages are going down. They're competing. Now they're essentially equal to someone that they felt that was lower than them.
Oh no.
And now is Congress coming in and enforcing that they do this stuff? So all of a sudden, African Americans are armed with the right to vote? And is this upsetting the social order? And so a group is created. And this group is the KKK. Oh, we also have 5 military districts. The KKK is created at this time. And a lot of it is, it's a fraternal organization of people who are coming together to reinstill the social order. And one of the things that they're doing is they're terrorizing African Americans. One of the most common things to do is that any African American who was registered to vote, they would take their name and put it on the front page of the newspaper. Was it for kudos? No, it's basically a hit list. If you were employing this person, should you employ him anymore? No. If you were renting to this person, should you rent to them anymore? No. So now, is this organization, what are they trying to flout? What are they trying to go around? The 14th and 15th Amendment, right? And so that was the purpose of the Klan. The purpose of the Klan was to get rid of that 14th and 15th Amendment and to bring back what line?
That one right there.
And this will be further done in this time period with Jim Crow laws, which we'll talk more about on Thursday. So now, should we have another plan? Yes, because we have an issue with this group coming in and terrorizing African Americans, preventing them from having their 14th and 15th Amendment rights. We should have another plan. But there's a problem. There's a problem. There's an election. You have to understand this election. I'm going to precursor it because you'll see it tonight in your reading. There's the 1876 election. It's between Hayes, the Republican, and the Democrat, Tilden. Tilden actually gets more electoral college votes. but he doesn't win the majority. So does he become president? So there is a problem. There is 3 states that turn in double returns. Because I want you to think, can African Americans vote here? Yes. What party do you think they vote for? Do you think they vote for Democrat or they vote for Republican? Republican. So our problem is we have 3 states down south. South Carolina, who's always troublesome. Florida, who always gives us issues in elections. And Louisiana, the stepchild of Texas. Okay. They all give us problems because they have, remember the Electoral College? It's a win-all system. So like Texas, who wins Texas usually? Republicans or Democrats? Republicans. So they get all 35 votes, right? Well, at this time, we had governments that were sending in double votes. So South Carolina had Republican electors. They also had Democratic electors. Republican and Democrat for Florida. Republican and Democrat for Louisiana. Can we accept both Electoral College results from both these states? No. So now the House is having an issue that we have a dispute of about 21 Electoral College votes. So they're going to set up a commission to deal with this. This commission is going to have 15 people. 8 of them are going to be Republican and 7 of them are going to be Democrat. Who's going to win? All of a sudden, the Republican get all of those votes. So now who wins the election? Who feels cheated? Because was he winning?
Yes.
And now the South feels cheated, so they're going to create a compromise. And what have we learned about compromises in the antebellum period? Do they solve the problems or do they make it worse? So this is going to cause the 1876 compromise, where Hayes will become the president. Y'all see him up there on the wall, Hayes? He's right there at the start of the Gilded Age. Hayes will become president. Is the South happy? No. So the compromise is Hayes is president. So to get something for the South, they're going to give them something. What do you think the South wants? They want slaves, but can they have them?
No.
Okay? They don't want African Americans to be equal. They can't have them.
Jim Crow.
They get the end of Reconstruction. If we get Reconstruction to end, who's going to move out of the South now? Who's there enforcing the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment? If we end that and the military's no longer there, what can they openly violate now? The 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. And so this leads to the creation of Jim Crow laws. Does the Jim Crow law now establish this segregation between the landless whites and then the former slaves? So now let's look at this from that quote I gave you at the beginning of the class. The South will rise again. Did the South rise again? Did we go exactly back to what we were before the Civil War? And so that's why for the next 100 years, African Americans, will they be still slaves again? Will they be slaves again? Jim Crow laws will say they could be sharecroppers, tenant farmers, or service industry. Will they be equal citizens? No. Those Jim Crow laws will prevent that. Last thing, will they have the right to vote? And so for the next 100 years, it is the election of Hayes and this compromise that basically resolves that we went back to what we were before the Civil War. And this is why we'll have the civil rights movement in the 1960s, 1950s, and 40s. So who won Reconstruction? The South, because did the South actually change? Did they go back to the same social order? Yes. And those laws, the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, are going to be openly violated by Jim Crow laws. So on the back of y'all's notes, do y'all see this little horseshoe? Okay, I want to talk about this horseshoe because do y'all see that there's lines and there's X's on it?
Yeah.
Okay, so the lines mean the white oligarchy. When Reconstruction started, the white oligarchy came back into power. Did they cause problems? Yeah, right? They instituted the black code. So really, did we need tougher Reconstruction? So then Congress comes in, and y'all see all those X's there? Congress comes in and they say, okay, ex-Confederate leaders cannot hold office. And this is going to lead to a group of people with the X. Do y'all see the little legend down here? It says the X's are a couple of people. They are freedmen who get to vote, right? So African Americans. They're also scalawags, and you're going to see this later on your study guide. A scalawag is not a pirate or anything like that or anything from, okay? A scalawag is a southerner who is pro-freedman, okay? A carpetbagger, do you see that other word? Okay, most times at this time, most luggage cases were made out of wood. So if you were to put your clothing in a wood luggage case, what oftentimes would happen to your clothes?
Wood chips.
Wood chips, and then your clothes would get snags on them, right? So most luggage cases at this time had a carpet lining in them so that your clothes couldn't get snagged. So a carpetbagger means this is a person who has moved from the north to the south who supports freedmen. It is the scalawags, the carpetbaggers, and the freedmen who are these X's, who will come in and institute the new governments that will agree to the 13th and 14th Amendment. But once they agree to that, and states start coming in, do y'all see Virginia there? What happened to all of those scalawags, carpetbaggers, and freedmen in government? Were they there? They were replaced by who? What does the line represent? Okay, are we really changing our government? And then we go and we add in more states, but then what happens to the X's? They start losing power, and who starts coming back to power? The white oligarchy. And if you look all the way down to 1877, what has happened to our freedmen, our scalawags, and our carpetbaggers? They've been replaced by the white oligarchy. And has the white oligarchy basically circumvented everything we did here in Reconstruction? Okay, so do y'all now get the phrase, the South will rise again?